October 21st, 2015. We made it. We're living in the future. Well, I assume so. I'm recording this in June, so I expect by the time you're watching this, humankind will either answer to the call of their dolphin overlords, or they will have destroyed themselves because of all of the fallout from the atomic wars. However, best case scenario, Mattel will have finally got their act together and released that hoverboard that Back to the Future promised me over 25 years ago. Since I saw Back to the Future 2 in 1989, I've been waiting for the future like I had a spastic colon on a long car ride, and 2015 was a gas station in the middle of nowhere. 6-year-old me wanted that hoverboard, and I was determined to get one and ride it to work every day, even if I would be 32 at the time and people would stare at me with that same stodgy disapproval of maturity they adopt every time they watch an Adam Sandler movie. But people give me those looks anyway because I teach science fiction, so I figure I have nothing to lose. Fortunately, this movie was spot on in its predictions of the future. We all wear shiny plastic. Our garbage consists of trashed laser discs. Antique shops overflow with memorabilia from Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg movies. A man's success is judged by how many dot matrix printers he has in his home, and car manufacturers have abandoned giant, dirty, earthbound vehicles for sleek, lightweight, and efficient flying cars. Still, I wish they'd stop making all those Jaws sequels. I don't think they've made enough Saw movies yet. Maybe The Land Before Time needs another installment or two. Okay, so maybe they didn't get everything right. But there's still hope. If I'm recording this in June, and the thing is in October... You got 4 months, science. Get to work. Fortunately for time travel junkies like me, we haven't had to suffer in a complete withdrawal of irritability, insomnia, newspaper shifting hallucinations, and DeLorean tremors, so let's look at some of the video games we've had to keep our capacitors fluxing these past 30 years. First up on our list is the 1989 NES installment by LJN, a classic known by fans for representing the 1985 film about as well as Pee Wee Herman represents the Nation of Islam.
You have to use your hands? That's like a baby's toy.
Immediately, the game bombards us with this stellar neo-contemporary composition. You hear that? Hear that music? That's it. That's all we get for the entire game. According to Wikipedia, the soundtrack is Huey Lewis's Power of Love. Really? The Power of Love? That? I'm gonna have to check this for myself. Can we put them side by side, maybe slow it down a bit? Guess it really is all about that bass. Well, if the developers didn't want to scrape up a few more quarters to get the rights for the complete song, then I sure as hell hope they design some premium gameplay. Okay, I'm not actually moving here. Apparently Marty's got dance fever. Maybe a bomb will explode if he drops under 55 miles an hour. So apparently someone at LJN thought, you know what would make a great space shooter? Back to the Future. This game has more in common with Galaga or 1942, neither one of it which, I believe, had anything to do with trying to keep your mom off your junk. So they just replaced asteroids with bees, missiles with bullies, and enemy ships with, guys carrying glass? And what the hell are the Blues Brothers doing down there at the bottom of the screen? Marty just sort of wanders through the streets of Hill Valley. Jake, Elwood, and Mighty Mac down there are actually the photo Marty carries with him, and it's fading with time. But instead of resolving meaningful conflict among the characters to prevent your untimely demise, you pick up clocks. Because LJN couldn't be bothered with actually watching the movie, that might cut into their siesta. But the movie has something to do with time, right? Power-ups along the way include a skateboard, which speeds up your movement, allowing you greater, more profuse concussions when you smash into things, and a bowling ball to chuck at enemies. Don't you just love the part in the movie where Marty finally fulfills his dream of becoming a professional bowler by throwing a bowling ball at Biff, then trying to kill the goons by dropping a nest of tracker jackers on their heads? Or was that in part 2? If it seems like the videos I've been showing you are a bit boring and repetitive, there's a very good reason for that. That's all there is. The same level, exactly the same way, 16 times. So that's not entirely true. They clearly thought a change of color might brighten up the fact that we have to play the same damn level all the time, and they'll interrupt Marty's street walking every 4 levels with something that reminds me of a movie I saw once. More like mini-games than the main event, these segments are harder than playing piano in hockey gloves, and if you fail to hit all 50 bullies, catch all 50 of Lorraine's hearts, or if you screw up your song, thus ruining any shot your parents ever had at happiness and condemning Chuck Berry to a lifetime of obscurity, they'll toss you right back to the main event and make you play the last street level again. Except on the last level. If you lose there, it's game over. Lightning doesn't strike twice. Except here it does. But stay away from that. That's bad lightning, I guess. Don't want to be struck by that. Guess there's only 1.19 gigawatts or something. So that was pretty atrocious. I think on the list of diseases I'd rather have than play this game again, that one just might be malaria. But a lot of video games improve when they move to the second installment, so why not take a look at the next NES installment, Back to the Future 2 and 3. Looks like LJN went all out on this one. Bass and melody. They're dangerously close to something I might want to listen to. This looks promising. A story written using actual story. Somebody on staff must have actually seen this movie. Alright, Gabe, I'm on board. Let's go for it. Yeah, let's see what you got. So by the look of it, Biff Tannen became a millionaire and either immediately sponsored a nuclear holocaust or decided to reenact Mad Max on a municipal level. Fallout 5? Hill Valley Wasteland? Hey, Spiky, what are you doing here? Last time I checked, there's no Mario monsters in Hill Valley. No Super Mario jumping on Biff Tannen to save the day. I could double check, but pretty sure I'm right about this. So the game basically redesigns Mario, with Marty hopping from platform to platform, jumping on enemies. Every time he dies, the Doc rescues him in the DeLorean, rather than doing something useful, like, say, go back to 1955 and get the almanac from Biff. I wandered around this place for hours before I realized that certain pipes, manholes, and doors camouflaged perfectly to look exactly like the background actually led to rooms with stuff in them. To open them, you're supposed to collect the keys that randomly come flying out of enemies, but they tend to disappear faster than a handful of quarters dropped at the Republican National Convention. Inside the rooms, you'll either find a minigame that will reward you with some junk it just had lying around 1985, or a puzzle room with a word scramble to tell you which object goes in that room. But don't get it wrong or you might blow up! Seriously though, your item blows up if you get the wrong answer. The game doesn't have a terrible concept, but it's long and confusing, and it takes a brilliant, courageous hero to slog through the tedium of mapping, collecting, and word descrambling. Someone with the IQ of Stephen Hawking, the patience of a Buddha, and the nerves of a driver's ed instructor, a noble soul, a paragon of humanity! Let's see if there's anything good on Sega.
Marty! You've got to come back with me. Where? Back to the future.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Let's turn to Back to the Future 2 for the Sega Master System, which, for some reason, I couldn't record with sound. I guess this sci-fi video game about the future doesn't mix well with modern technologies. Marty, you've got to come back with me! Where? Back to the future! Can we see that last clip again? Now, I believe this here shows the act of going into the future. Thanks for giving me the option, Doc. At least you didn't slip me one of those Men in Black techno roofies like you gave Jennifer. And who drew Marty with John Lennon's hair and big Magilla gorilla arms? The two of them there look like a teenage Inspector Gadget and Professor Impossible wearing the banner from a car dealership. Finally, some authenticity. Costume, music, hoverboard. He moves like he's afraid of being spotted by a hawk, but... Died. First enemy. This game is gonna give me Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde flashbacks. Well, I've got this button that makes Marty bust out the disco moves. Maybe I can use it to knock down enemies. Or not. You know what this game is? This game is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, except without the weapons or ninja skills, and no mutants. It's like playing with an actual regular turtle. The developers said, Marty's superpower is running away from bullies. That's all you get. I never thought I'd miss the bowling ball. So, there's more to this game, as I found out when I got distracted once and didn't hit the start button right away. But about the time the 78-year-old Biff came out and himselfed me over the head with his cane, I decided to let this one go. Too bad I'll never be able to do the climactic tile sliding puzzle. Let's try the Sega Genesis, shall we? Maybe they've got something that isn't quite as hard as a shot of Everclear followed up by a handful of Viagra. Ah, a Probe production. No chance of this game being a pain in the ass with a name like that. Okay, we're gonna start here? None of that stuff about running from the Indians or getting hanged by Buford Tannen? I get it. No, I really do. All that high-action conflict would just put players to sleep. Completely inappropriate for a video game. Let's skip right to the love plot. In the first level, you take control of Doc Brown and his blind horse as you crash into every rock, insect, and piece of junk in the desert. Seriously, the Doc takes a worse beating in this stage than Mitt Romney took against Evander Holyfield. And if it looks like I just didn't put any effort to improve, the average human reaction time generally falls between 0.2 and 0.25 seconds. That's between a fifth and a quarter of a second. Frame by frame, from when each obstacle appears on screen and when it hits you, I measured 0.07 seconds, 7/100ths of a second. The probulators at Probe Software seem to know how hard they made the game, because they put in half a dozen or so captions for the pictures that displayed when you fail. Maybe that required a little more effort than, say, slowing down the level so we could actually see it, but hey, sadism is funny stuff, right? The only way to get through this level is to memorize the entire sequence of obstacles. Or do what I did and use save states. The game only has 3 other levels, but like all the other games on this list, none of them have the same core gameplay mechanics as the others. The Back to the Future game franchise must be where dregs of cancelled games go to die. They're like that meal you make when you haven't bought groceries in 2 weeks and end up concocting a sandwich out of a single slice of bread, 3 pepperonis, 2 spoonfuls of macaroni and cheese, and that packet of fire sauce left over from the last time you went to Taco Bell. If the public domain soundtrack didn't indicate how little money they spent making this, they also apparently didn't pay anyone to test the game. Check out the beginning of the train level. Did I just get knocked off the train by a post next to the track? And look at this. I have to pick this up. It makes the train go faster. I don't know how. I can't pick it up. Look at this level. It is literally based off a movie that in turn based it off a video game. But at least Wild Gunman let you use a zapper. Here, you have to slide the gun side to side and angle it to a high, middle, or low zone to hit your targets. I've had better success getting stuffed animals out of crane games.
Hey, just tell me one thing. Where did you learn to shoot like that?
7-Eleven.
Well, going to the Old West was kind of fun, I guess, but I'm tired of all these difficult-to-handle adolescent games that just can't seem to figure out who they are. I wonder if there's one out there that already knows. Here's one for the Super Famicom. That's kind of like the SNES. Let's give it a shot. Strong start here. Music, little chibi characters, aren't they adorable? And oh God, the hell is that? It looks like Elton John and Yubaba had a baby. So the game is obviously only in Japanese, as it was only released in Japan. But lucky for you, I once bought a Japanese textbook, so, allow me to translate.
Marty-kun? Oh, Jennifer-chan. Oh, Jennifer-chan. Oh, Taka-sensei. Marty-chan, we must go to future. Your children, they bring much shame on the family.
Yeah, that was really racist. Sorry about that. I shouldn't have done that. Do you know what else is racist?
McFly!
Fujitsu-san, konnichiwa!
McFly! I was monitoring that scan you just interfaced. You are terminated!
I can tell immediately there's one thing that sets this apart from the other games so far. This one doesn't suck. Sure, it controls like Scooby-Doo running from a guy in a rubber suit, and Michael J. Kitsune here won't stop giving me that creepy look. But it's challenging without being unplayable. That and these giant Roger Rabbit cartoon bullets ought to be worth a few points at least. Alright, enough with the showboating there. And quit mugging the camera. The boss battles feel more natural and smooth than in earlier titles. Also, this title has boss battles, although I do take issue with this one.
Hey, McFly, you bojo! The bars don't work on water! Unless you've got power!
You know, I don't remember Marty romping through the streets of the dystopian 1985, but I'd like to think that if he had, it would have looked a little something like this. They really tried to fit a lot of details from the film into the game, including a lot of the minor characters, like Billy Zane here. And his tuba. You know, I've seen the movie about 100 times, but, I guess I just missed the tuba. Lorraine? You got something wrong with your arms there? Looks like they're sticking out of your, waist. She must be practicing for her umpire license exam, calling Marty safe like that. Is that supposed to be Mr. Strickland? Super Back to the Future 2 makes a decent, if simple, platformer. And that's coming from someone who thinks of platformers as baby's first video game, like those soft plastic books you give to kids who are more likely to slobber and suck on the book, digesting it like a fly, than to actually read it. Background designs and familiar level layouts convey a sense of time travel, even if the abstract street design, spikes, and cliffs may not have proven the best of civil engineering decisions. Probably my favorite feature of this game, at the beginning of each level, you're given a 4-letter English password, so you don't have to leave the game running for a week in order to finish it. Usually these codes are the names of animals or the royal playing cards, so if you want to skip ahead, they're pretty easy to guess. It's a little disappointing that the highest praise I have for the best game in the bunch is, it's playable! Even Super Back to the Future 2 is at heart just a platformer, put together with about as much inspiration as a Southern revival preacher on a heavy dose of horse tranquilizers. Sure, it tells the story, but isn't the point of playing video games to get something more than just the story? If only there were some game that really let me play through the history of Hill Valley, something that might serve as the Back to the Future 4 I've always wanted. If you or anyone you know has ever wanted another Back to the Future movie, you need this game. Even if you don't play video games and just happen to stumble across this video, not realizing that it isn't Last Week Tonight or a compilation of Cat Vines or RedTube after 20 minutes of viewing. This point-and-click adventure story begins in 1986, with Marty struggling to keep going while Doc Brown, the inventor of the time machine, has neglected to visit for over a year, off gallivanting throughout history, screwing with the space-time continuum, risking universe-destroying paradoxes, and porking Mary Steenburgen. Luckily, Einstein shows up in the DeLorean with a message for Marty. Doc is in trouble and needs Marty to bail him out. Searching for clues to his whereabouts in time, Einstein leads Marty to the apartment of Edna Strickland, retired journalist and full-time curmudgeon, whose hordes of newspapers reveal that Doc has been arrested in 1931.
Old-fashioned vengeance last night when a mob descended on the Hill Valley police station. The suspect in the speakeasy arson case, a drifter known as Carl Sagan, was pulled from his... Carl Sagan? It's Doc! Killed by a mob. What's the date? June 14th, 1931. Jeez, I gotta rescue him.
My newspapers!
Sorry, Miss Strickland. Let me...
No! You've gotten my history out of order!
But I assure you, that is not at all a lame attempt at foreshadowing.
McFly! Biff? Kid! Grandpa?
Although the game includes a few scenes parallel to the movies, it doesn't repeat old material. Instead, the writers, with the help of one of the film's creators, Bob Gale, as story consultant, explored unanswered questions about the history of Hill Valley, the McFly and Tannen families, and gave special focus to the relationship between Doc and Marty. While the original film was inspired by Bob Gale wondering if he would have been friends with his father in high school, the game puts the 18-year-old Marty alongside the 18-year-old Emmett Brown. The authors deserve 1.21 gigawatts of praise for their original character, Edna Strickland, and their amazing use of time travel to give her an incredible depth of character and meaningful conflict.
My intentions were pure. It wasn't supposed to happen like this.
But it did happen like this, and you've been repressing it all these years because you can't stand to admit that you're...
A hooligan! I'm a hooligan!
While the story doesn't branch out depending on your actions, as in Heavy Rain, and you can't actually lose, it does set up a number of problems for Marty to solve using his wit and a small inventory. Other games often require Rube Goldberg's foresight in puzzle solving, asking you to trade your flower pot to the merchant in exchange for a cheese grater that you use to strain the sand on the beach to find a gem you didn't know was there that you'll have to... Well, you get the point. Back to the Future's puzzles are challenging, but intuitive. Doc wants to hear what his younger self has been muttering. It took me a while to remember I'd been carrying around a tape recorder since the beginning of the game, but it made sense. The best thing is, the story is entirely consistent with the movies, fitting into the canon perfectly, except for the unexplained fact that the DeLorean seems to be intact and fully operational. But honestly, Back to the Future 4 using the time train instead of the DeLorean would be like shooting Jurassic Park 4, recasting the Tyrannosaurus as Barney. There you have it. Every console Back to the Future game that exists. And if someone gets around to inventing time travel, I guarantee that I'll travel back in time to add any future Back to the Future games to this video. And since it ends here, that must mean either they won't ever make any more Back to the Future console games, or they'll never invent time travel. That's probably for the best, though. You wouldn't want to ruin the space-time continuum with more games like these. The 2010 game notwithstanding, of course. And that concludes my video. I sure hope you're as tired of watching it as I'm tired of making it. I know it's a little rough around the edges, but if you made it all the way through, thanks for watching. And if you didn't make it through, wake up! You need to shut off the computer before going to sleep. Happy Future!
This sucker's electrical, but I
I need a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity.
1.21 gigawatts!